yeah, as I say, I tried to run a course last summer, and people have just got commitments and all sorts, and it was really difficult. So I thought I won't bother this summer, and I need to get more of my own work done anyway. And plus, when the days like this, you get a nice day, people want to go and do other things. So that's the reason for not doing it. But I thought I did the same slideshow with the group this morning. I thought I'd just talk about what you could do over the summer and where to sort of go next if you wanted to carry on with this. Um, the key thing is to practice. It's like anything, it's like absolutely anything. You can't learn how to paint and draw in a 10-week course. Um, it takes a lifetime. You need to be doing it regularly, and make it into a habit. And practice, I don't, it can be 10 minutes. You can just do a 10-minute drawing, but as long as you're doing it regularly. So I don't know if any of you have ever learned to play a musical instrument. You if you do 15 minutes a day, it's better than doing an hour once a week. You do learn better by drip feeding it. Um, so that's really important. And when you're practicing, I've got some notes somewhere actually that I wrote down. I've lost them now. It doesn't have to be any specific subject. It can be, you could be drawing the cat at home or anything. Um, One thing I would say though is have in mind what you're aiming for. So if you're painting, think about the type of artwork you want to produce. And often, Instagram, we all seen artists on Instagram that we'd like to be able to paint like. If you try and paint like them, I mean, in a way, that's what the old masters used to do. And actually, if you go to art university to do art, you'll go to a museum and they'll make you copy the old masters. Um, Not because they want you to produce an image like them, but because you will have to go through the same problems and struggles that artist went through, and you'll learn by copying other people how to solve those problems. So if you find a bit of artwork that you like, whether it's abstract, realist, still life, landscape, whatever, and you try to copy it, you will learn just by going through that process of how the artist made that piece of work, and some of that sinks in. Um, Drawing's really important. Um, as I was saying before, we just had a conversation about people wanting to learn to draw better. Drawing is probably the most important thing in making your art look convincing. You can understand colour, you can understand values and mediums and materials and all that sort of stuff, but if you get the drawing wrong, it just jumps out, doesn't it? And that is something that you just have to just regularly do. And I would say drawing from life is more valuable than drawing from a picture. Because when you've got a picture, you have a rectangle already formed, and you can relate the objects to the boundary that you've got. When you're drawing from life, as you found when we did a bit of drawing from life, you've got to then think about the position of that on the page and think about that object in 3 dimensions. And it's really is a skill. Um, we were having this conversation 5 minutes ago about a drawing course, and I'm rethinking how I do the beginner's course. And with the feedback I've already had in the last 10 minutes, I'm thinking maybe the first half of the course will be purely dedicated to drawing using dry materials, pencils, crayons, that kind of thing, charcoal, um, because I think we maybe skip through it too quickly in this course. Okay. Um, Variety of subjects, I've mentioned that. It depends what your interest is really. The other thing it's worth, I know I gave everybody a sketchbook at the start of the course. You can obviously do your drawings in there, but a sketchbook is an ideas book as much as anything else. So if you get a new material and you want to figure out how to mix colours, or you want test it in your sketchbook and try and keep notes on it, everything you do you store in that sketchbook, and then you don't lose it for the future. So it might be that you want to learn how to mix a skin tone and you don't know how to do it, and you can experiment in a sketchbook and then record what you've done. It's a great place to keep everything. When I was doing my degree, you'd get more marks for your sketchbook than you would your finished piece, because they want to see your thought processes and how you've reached that point. So the next thing you might need a big studio with a huge north-facing window, heating, coffee machine. You will need a space to work if you want to make this a habit. And the reason, No, I wish. I wish. I'm stuck in a corner of the garage at home. um, and the reason I'm saying this is if you every week you think I'm going to do some drawing or every couple of days and you've got to go and get the materials out and you've got to get set up and get your paints out, you won't do it. You know, it's so much easier if you've just got it set up, whether it's a desk in the corner of the room that you just leave your work on and you can come back to it. It's easy then, isn't it? To just get the paints out and start painting. But if you've got to get all the turpentine out, you've got to get, you know, you're not going to do it. So having a space that's dedicated is really, it's really worth its weight in gold. At our previous house, I just had we had a like spare room, and I'd got a desk in the corner, and I just left everything set up there, and it was out of bounds to where the kids, you know. I'm lucky now. I've got the back of the garage, and Jen takes 3/4 of it, and I've got a little bit at the back. Yeah, that's right. Honestly, seriously could be. But yeah, you need a space to work, and things to consider are. See, the size of that space will dictate the size of the work you can produce. You know, if you've got a studio like this, then you can do 6 foot by 6 foot paintings. But as my studio space is tiny, I've got this little corner of the garage, like I say, so I can't do big paintings. And I used to have a big H-frame easel like this in there, which was a nightmare because there wasn't the room for it. So I've taken it out, and to save space, I have essentially, this is my easel I use outside, but you can see this bit on the front, it just slides up and down to fit your canvas in. I've literally got something like that screwed to the wall. That's all it is. I mean, you can even have it on a hanger, so you just hang it on. Not the entire easel, but just this front bit. I dismantled an old easel and put it on the wall. So now there's no impact on floor space, and I can put my canvases against the wall and just stand there and paint, you know. So that's one space-saving device.
How do you store your work?
I've got, yeah, I mean, I do a lot of smaller panels because I can't work big, and I've got shelving in there, and I just stack them up. Within 2 or 3 days, they're dry enough to sort of move off there. I have got loads and loads. I've got paintings in the rafters of the garage that are all stacked up in there as well. Yeah.
Do you know whose studio that is?
I have no idea, but I'm very jealous. Just that windows are fabulous. I was just talking about windows. The next bit's lighting. I mean, natural lighting is always the best to work under because you get the colours more accurate, and they're preferably north light because it's you don't get that bright glare from the sun. It's a little bit cooler, the light is. You get a better colour judgment. Definitely don't work under a tungsten bulb that you have in your living room. What will happen is that's a very yellow light, and if you're doing a painting, you unknowingly compensate by putting more blue into the colour. So if you're painting a landscape, for example, and you've got a normal tungsten light bulb in, the correct green would look very yellow under that light. So you add more blue to it, thinking I'll make it the right colour green. Then when you see it in proper daylight, suddenly everything looks really blue and cold. So it's better to use, if you can only afford a daylight bulb, they're essentially just a blue bulb that you can screw into a normal light, and that will give you a cooler light to work under, and your colours will be better. If you want to be a bit more serious about it, you can buy things like this. This is a photographer's light, and these mount on like a tripod. It's a very, very bright light, but I won't shine it in your faces. But so on the back of it, you can see all these numbers. It's only on 30% at the moment. You can change the intensity of the light. But this here is degrees Kelvin. That light, natural daylight is at 5,500 degrees for Kelvin. So you can mimic daylight. I've got 2 of these, one side on one wall and one on the other, both on the canvas. And it's just as good as being outside. They really are good. They're about £60 each. That's the only thing. They're not cheap. But if you're serious about the lighting, they would do the job. And you can, of course, you could change the colour of the light, so you can make it more yellow. You see how it's got more yellow, and you can make it cooler. But they're worth having.
You go online, though?
Yeah, it's by a company called Neewer. the photographers' lights when they do these portraits. Neewer LED lights.
Would you use one of those, you know, those sad lights you get?
Yeah, because they've got a mimic daylight as well.
Daylight
Yeah,
lights.
I started with one of them
Yeah.
before I bought these. The only problem with those is they're hard to mount, if you know what I'm saying, on anything. I do have one of them though as well.
Yeah, I've got one that's about A4 size.
That's it, yeah. And you can adjust the colour on those as well, I think.
I don't know you can on mine, it's just a cool
Yeah.
light, but I'm sure you can
Yeah.
get something like that.
I used to use that to shine on my work, and now I use it to light up the subject. If I'm doing a still life, I light it up, and it looks like there's light coming from a window because it's so close to real daylight. But like I said, the thing to avoid is a normal tungsten bulb. They just ruin your paintings. So lighting's important. You can use a desk if you haven't got an easel. You know, there's nothing saying you can't use a desk, but you do need something to put your work on and have it readily available. One thing, if you've got pets and you've got work on a desk, you know, I mean, our cat straight on your painting, you know. So just beware of that.
Get the cat to sign it though. Make a fortune.
What's next? Ventilation. Now, we've not done any oil painting, but I know, Jeff, you're into your oil painting, aren't you?
Well, I'd like to learn. That's
Yeah. Well, I brought it along today to show you anyway. When I started to do this full time, and I was painting all day, every day, I used that stuff Gamsol instead of turpentine. Turpentine is really bad for your health. It smells great, but it's really bad for your health. And I was finding I was getting headaches and all sorts. And then I moved on to this. This is odourless solvent. And it's just as bad. You just can't smell it. But you still get the headaches and everything else. And in the end, I had to put an extraction system in. So I've got like a welder's extracting thing that pumps all the air outside. I mean, obviously, you're not going to go to that extreme, but you need a window open or something if you're going to be using any solvents.
You would wash brushes out and reduce the viscosity of.
Yeah, you can do that, but what you can use, you get all kinds of these solvents for cleaning brushes when you're working with oils, but there's a really cheap alternative, because a bottle of that size is 60 quid. It's not cheap. You can use cooking oil. So if you're working inside and you haven't got any ventilation and you're working in oils, cooking oil will clean your brushes just as well as that. The only thing is you have to make sure you wipe off all the excess, because it's quite gloopy, you know, and it's a fraction of the price. Ordinary cooking oil, any oil really, you know.
Sunflower
Not the best olive oil.
No, that's it, because it'll probably cost you the same. Extra virgin olive oil, yeah. No, just cheap cooking oil. Cheap cooking oil will clean the paint off your brushes, and then you can clean them with the ferroliquid afterwards. But the only disadvantage is it's not as thin as that, so your brushes end up quite gloopy, and you have to constantly wipe them off with a rag. Okay. Now, if you don't have a space to work but you want to carry on painting, there's always the option of going outside. Clearly that's a pretty big painting you've got out there, but you can imagine painting inside is quite challenging. Taking it all outside just multiplies the problems. Okay, it's fabulous. I love painting outside. It's one thing I do quite a lot of. If you're going to paint outside, you've got to think really carefully about the easel that you use. Clearly you can't carry a great big H-frame easel out there. Something like this is a French easel. It's designed for carrying all your equipment. So I've got this, which obviously the work fits on the front, but then if you open it up, you've got drawers inside, and it carries everything you need. You know, there's a drawer in there, so you just put everything in this and you just carry it like a suitcase. You can get smaller ones. You can get them sort of half the size of this. They're known as pochard boxes. They literally just carry everything with that. I paid £20 for that about 20 years ago, but I think they're quite a lot of money. They're over £100 now. They are, but they'll last forever. You know, they really are good.
They are proprietary brands like Winsor & Newton, or is it just somebody that makes them?
They're made by lots of different people. The best one is made by a company called Julien, a French company. but you're talking a couple £100 for one of those. Jackson's Art sell them for a fraction of the price. They're just the same thing. They just not got that name on it. If you're going to go and paint outside or draw outside, keep it simple. You don't need to take every colour you've got available. You just take your primary colours and a black and a white. Store things in little jars. You know, don't take out bottles of Gamsol with you. Just take little jars. Handful of paintbrushes, one of each size. Gamsol's, if you're working in oils, sorry, that's a solvent. So I will take a little tiny jar of that along with me. Keep it really simple because you've got to carry this stuff everywhere.
And is that just for cleaning your brushes?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, if you're going watercolour painting, you need water, you know. But what I'm saying is, you just take a small jar of it. You don't need loads of stuff. Keep things really simple. You can just take a sketchbook and one of those little pans of paint, one of those dry pans, and a little bottle of water, and you could sit outside and paint, you know. Don't overcomplicate it because it's, you know, tempting to take the kitchen sink with you and thinking, oh, I'm going to need this, I'm going to need that, and actually you don't really. You do need to think ahead because when you, particularly if you're working in a wet medium like oil, not only have you got to get out there, you've also got to get back with a wet painting. Now I do a plein air course in Devon. Last year's the first year I did it, and we had 6 people on the course, and each day we'd go and visit a location and they'd do 2 paintings. So at the end of the day we had 12 oil paintings to get back to the accommodation, and we only had 2 cars. And we'd not even thought about how we're going to do this. So the logistics of getting a wet painting back home without it all over your clothes and your car, you know, they're things you have to think about. If you're going to go outside, it's going to be sunny, windy, rainy, so you've got to be prepared for the weather. I mean, the one thing that's wrong with this image is the guy's wearing sunglasses. If you're going out painting, don't wear sunglasses outside because that will adjust all your colours completely. You'd wear a hat instead. You'll need insect repellent. The number of times I've been out and been savaged by flies. If you've got an easel, I always take a guy rope because we lost an easel off the side of a cliff on the course last year because they become basically a big sail. When you put a canvas on it and it's windy and it's straight off the side of the cliff.
The painting going with it as well.
The paint, everything went, yeah. Easel, painting, the lot.
That was the end of their course.
That was the end of their course, yeah. Well, we'd supplied the easel and the canvas. And then the other thing that people don't think about is you might be using rags to clean your brushes and tissue paper and all that sort of stuff. A bin liner is essential because you've got to get mucky rags home and all that sort of stuff. So we just throw everything in a bin liner and tie it up, and you can take that back with you. Okay, but honestly, it's great fun, especially in the summer. You go outside and you paint outside. It's really good fun. You have to bear in mind, though, you prepare to fail because you're doing something that when you're inside is difficult, but when you're outside, it's multiplied. So I would say 1 in 10 paintings are any good, if that. Most of them are fails. So I'll go out to paint purely for the experience of being outside painting, not with the idea that I'm going to produce a masterpiece or anything. You know, it's just the experience of being out there painting.
I've not done a lot of it.
Yeah.
But to sit and get perspective right when you're outside because you've got so many distractions.
Oh yeah.
You've got so much area around you.
That's the one thing I haven't put on here actually, Jeff. It's
It really distorts your thinking. You just think that's not what I'm looking at.
yeah. One thing that can happen when you go outside, it's not like having a picture to copy. Normally you see a picture and it's been cropped and it looks great and the composition's okay. When you go outside into the countryside, there's pictures everywhere. You know, oh, I could do that or I could do that. I'll just go around the next corner, see if there's a better view. Or maybe I'll go a bit further. Before you know it, you've wasted 3 hours walking around looking for a spot to paint because there's so much to choose from. And then narrowing it down into an area that is worth, you know, it's a real challenge. And I would say if you're going to go and paint outside, choose something really simple that catches your eye. If it catches your eye, it's good enough to paint. And it could be something like a shadow going across a road or anything. It doesn't have to be a magnificent view. I was watching a guy on YouTube last week, and he was painting on a beach down south, and it was a rainy day, great rainy day. and his comments were that we have this idea that you've got to wait until it's beautiful, this idea of what beauty is. So a landscape, it has to be sunny, blue sky, it has to be the middle of summer, lots of flowers, you know. And actually, this painting he produced on this really miserable rainy day looked beautiful because the colours were subtle, there was lots of sort of blending and mistiness, you know. You can find beauty in things that aren't cliched ideas of beauty, if you're with me. So you can find a graffitied wall and it can be beautiful. So you don't have to necessarily wait until you've got that perfect landscape with, you know, a Bob Ross mountain with a river flowing towards you and all that sort of stuff. You can find beauty everywhere. Okay, now a bit of a plug. I've just opened a new YouTube channel, and it's going to be about plein air painting, and it's not a tutorial channel. It's just me over the summer. I'm going to go out and I'm going to paint probably 3 or 4 times a week. I've got a chest-mounted GoPro. So the only video that's on that channel at the moment is my test of this GoPro, whether it works or not. And the idea is it's just you can watch me painting outside, and anybody who's with me will be on it as well. So that's my plug for that.
What's it called?
A Painter's Day. And it's at a Painter's Day with no apostrophe, or one word. Right, so that's that bit. I just want to go over some of the things we've done on this course. So a quick recap. So when you're talking about drawing, forget what you know about the subject. Remember me talking about that before. Because if you're drawing a portrait, you'll end up drawing what you think a portrait looks like. Think about the shapes. You've got to simplify the object or subject in front of you down to just simple shapes. And hopefully, if you draw those shapes accurately, it will hang together as an image. Start with the biggest shapes first, and then gradually work into it. And you can look at things like negative space around it, the shape of the negative space. Keep it simple, though. The overall, remember when we were doing the elephant, was it we did, or a giraffe or something? Start with the overall general big shapes and then work into them. Make comparisons between one part of your image and another, how things are related vertically and horizontally. If you remember me saying, it's easy to relate verticals and horizontals to each other, you know, and leave the details until you get the main shapes right. Details, it's easy to get distracted by details. Usually when people start to learn to draw, if they're doing a portrait, they're starting to do a really detailed eye, then they'll do another detailed eye, and then they'll do the nose. By the end of the portrait, everything's completely out the wrong place, but they're very detailed. So drawing is the first thing. Values, that's the lights and the darks. Remember to squint, again, to simplify things down. So see things in terms of dark areas and light areas. I mean, obviously on this picture, within the dark areas, there's a range of values. There's lighter areas within that dark. But if you squint at this, that section there just becomes one dark area. And within it, we can see something that's slightly lighter. Okay. So to start with, squint and identify where the dark values are, where the light values are. Okay. And then you can adjust within those. If you can remember that division between the light and dark, the terminator, you've got to kind of identify where that is. Colour. If you are struggling to mix a colour, it's easy with the colours are primary, if it's red, yellow or blue or green, and it's blatantly obvious, but it's usually the subtle colours, you know. You're looking at the shadow under one of these chairs and it's not quite clear what it is. First thing is try to decide what hue it is, and that what I mean by that is where would it be on this colour wheel. Is it a yellow, is it a green, is it a blue? Okay. Where does it come closest? It might be a yellowy grey, it might be a greeny grey or a bluey grey that you're trying to get. Then once you've done that, think about its value. Is it a light colour? Is it a dark colour? Okay, so you identify the hue first, you identify its value, whether it's light or dark, and then how intense the colour is. That's the chroma. Okay, if it's really, I mean, usually if it's a shadow colour, it's going to be fairly low intensity. Okay.
You said something about shadows that I thought was really good, and then I forgot it. But it was, is it
shadow will always be the colour
of the object
of the object that it's
on.
rather than the surface that it's on.
No, the other way around. So the shadow is a darker version of the colour of the surface. So if you take that kitchen roll that's in the middle of that table, and if it's casting a shadow onto that tablecloth, the shadow is going to be a dark blue. Although the kitchen roll's white, shadows are clearly not going to be white. You with me? If I move that kitchen roll onto this surface, it's going to be a darker brown colour.
Okay.
You with me? It's usually a darker version of the colour of the surface it's on. Okay. Sometimes, depending on the light source, if it's a middle of summer and it's a really bright sunny day, because that's a yellow warm light, you'll find shadows on the road sometimes look like they've got a blue tinge to them or a purple tinge. Yeah, the shadows will be cooler than the light source. The opposite works on a grey day. The shadows will be warmer colours. I'm getting a bit more complex on that. Okay, but generally, if you remember, it's a darker version of the surface it's on. So you might have a shadow that starts on a blue carpet but then goes onto a yellow wall. And of course, when you paint that shadow, you can't paint it the same colour on the carpet as you do on the wall. You have to change the colour. I wonder if there's an example. That really doesn't really work. Right. This is out of Richard Smith's book, Talent. Don't bother whether you have it or not, just assume you do and then forget about it. Okay. And I love this, but I think this is so spot on. Talent's a word we use after somebody's become accomplished. You know, when you come out the womb, you don't say, oh, there's a talented person. It's when they start to become accomplished. And usually, the way it works is when children sort of do a drawing, you go, oh, that's wonderful. They get a buzz from it, don't they? Oh, I got praise for that, so they do more of it. And that child is the one that's going to go on to become an artist. When I was a kid, both my brothers and my sister were really clever and they were good at sport. I could draw, and my mum and dad used to tell me, oh, he's such a good drawer. And that gave me a bit of an ego boost, so I did more of it than they did. They could have been equally as good at drawing as me, it's just they weren't told. And I think that's all it is. That's why my belief about talent. I think it's that thing about the more time you put into something, the better you become at it. My brother's a fabulous sportsman, but again, when he was young, he was told he's a fabulous sportsman, so he just did it more. And I like this one as well. So, you know, the thing with artwork, you're going to make lots of mistakes. You know, it is a process of just making mistakes. You don't beat yourself up and say, oh, I can't do this. It's like anything, isn't it? You just got to keep going and you will gradually improve, you know. So that's my lecture over for today. I feel like I've been talking forever.
No,
Has anybody got any questions? I mean, I don't want to, you know, I could go down all kinds of avenues into specifics, but hopefully if you come back again, we'll do more of that.
Can we just follow up on that light?
Yeah.
The fact that I got a bedroom and I can paint.
Yeah.
It's like a little swamp.
Yeah.
But you can't paint if the sun is behind you.
No.
With wet.
No.
The colour is, you can't see a colour.
No.
And you have to wait till the sun's gone in. That's why you're saying the north light.
Yeah.
Then it take me back when I was working that all false lights had, but consistent light was through a shiner, that all the shiners that were facing north.
Yeah.
And it was the constant light that makes you appreciate how different colours and reflections can falsify what you're trying to
Yeah.
do.
I mean, consistent lighting is a really big help. And if you're absolutely right. My easel faces a window. So when the daylight's coming in, I just get light shining.
Yeah.
If you can move your easel, that's one solution. You need light coming in from the side because you won't get the reflections. I have to block up my window with a curtain, and then I put the artificial lights on because I know they're going to be more consistent. You know, that's a problem when you're painting outside. You might want to paint a scene that's over there, but if the sun's directly behind you, you'll just get glare on your canvas. So you have to position the easel so that, and then of course the sun moves when you're outside.
The window is due west.
Yeah.
Across from about 2 o'clock onwards. You haven't got a clue.
No, it's too bright. Yeah.
Morning's okay, 'cause it's obviously south.
Yeah.
light, south light.
Yeah.
But where we're going to face it, where we're going to windows facing north.
Yeah, like I said, they are a godsend. They are, because I had the same problem. I had a window, which is great in the morning. In the afternoon, it just glares on the canvas. So artificial lighting is the way to go there. So what I've done is I've brought all the materials along. I've even got the oil paints, if anybody wants to have a dabble with oil paints. You choose your subject. You can paint and draw whatever you like. You can finish a piece off. All the materials are there for you to use. Okay.